Have you ever noticed how much time we spend worrying about what people think of us? From childhood, we learn to act, dress, and even talk in a way that pleases others. We want people to like us, to approve of us, to say, yes, this person is good. But in doing all this, somewhere we forget what we actually want. We keep living for other people's opinions instead of our own peace. The book, The Courage to be Disliked, starts with this exact question. Why do we try so hard to please people even when it makes us unhappy? The authors, Fumitake Koga and Ichiro Kishimi, explain through a conversation between a young man and a wise philosopher that true happiness begins only when we stop seeking approval and start living with purpose. This book is based on the philosophy of Alfred Adler, a great thinker who believed that every person can choose to be free right now. No matter what your past was, no matter what others think of you, you have the power to live your life your own way. The real courage is not in fighting others, it's in being okay with being disliked. Because when you stop living for applause and start living for truth, that's when you finally become free.
Chapter 1. The Conversation of Freedom. The entire book unfolds like a long, deep conversation between a young man and a wise philosopher. The young man is frustrated. He feels stuck, unhappy, and believes that the world around him is unfair. He blames his past, his circumstances, and the people who hurt him. He wants happiness, but he doesn't know where to find it. The philosopher listens calmly and tells him something surprising. You don't need to change the world to be happy. You just need to change the way you see the world. This becomes the heart of their dialogue. Through their talks, the young man learns that freedom doesn't mean running away from people or problems. It means taking full responsibility for your own life, your emotions, your reactions, and your choices. The philosopher explains that every person has the power to choose how to think and how to live, no matter what has happened before. So the conversation of freedom is not about outer success or control. It's about inner strength. True freedom begins when you stop blaming others and start owning your story. Chapter 2. The Prison of Comparison. Most of our unhappiness comes from one simple habit: comparing ourselves with others. We look at someone else's success, beauty, money, or fame, and instantly feel smaller. Adler says this is like living in a mental prison that we build with our own thoughts. The philosopher in the book explains to the young man that life is not a race. There is no finish line, no competition. Each person walks their own path, at their own speed, toward their own purpose. The problem begins when we start measuring our worth using someone else's yardstick. When we compare, we forget who we really are. We start chasing approval, trying to please, trying to prove ourselves, and in the process, we lose peace. Adler's wisdom is simple but powerful. The moment you stop comparing, you start living. You don't need to be better than others. You only need to be true to yourself. Your value doesn't come from being number one. It comes from being authentic. When you understand this, jealousy disappears, pressure fades, and you finally feel free to live your own story, not someone else's. Chapter 3. The Roots of Unhappiness. The philosopher tells the young man that most of our unhappiness doesn't come from money, talent, or luck. It comes from our relationships with people. We constantly want to be liked, appreciated, and admired. When someone ignores us or criticizes us, we start doubting ourselves. This need for approval becomes a trap. We start living our life according to what others expect, trying to make parents proud, trying to impress friends, trying to fit into society's definition of success. And slowly, we forget what we actually want. Adler calls this the biggest mistake: living for other people's acceptance instead of living by our own values. The philosopher explains that every time we chase someone else's approval, we hand them control over our happiness. We become like actors performing for applause instead of living with peace. True happiness, Adler says, begins when you realize you don't have to please everyone. The only approval you truly need is your own. When you stop trying to meet others' expectations and start listening to your heart, you take the first real step toward freedom and inner peace.
Chapter 4. The Courage to Change. The philosopher explains that one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is, "I can't change because of my past." Adler completely rejects this idea. He says that the past is not something that controls us, it's something we interpret. Two people can go through the same experience, but one moves forward while the other stays stuck. The difference is choice. Adler's psychology teaches that you are not a product of your past. You are a product of your decisions today. You can't rewrite what happened, but you can always choose how to respond to it. If you keep saying, "I am like this because of my childhood or because of what someone did to me," you give away your power. The philosopher reminds the young man, the past is not your excuse, it's your story. What matters is what you do next. Every day, every moment, you have the freedom to make a new choice, to think differently, act differently, and create a different future. Real courage, he says, is not about fighting others or chasing success. Real courage is the willingness to change yourself, to stop blaming the past and start living with responsibility. Because when you accept that your life is in your hands, you become truly free. Chapter 5. Tasks of Life and Knowing What's Yours. The philosopher introduces one of Adler's most practical and life-changing lessons, the idea of separation of tasks. He explains that many of our problems come from trying to control things that are not our responsibility. We worry about what others think, how they feel, or what choices they make. But in truth, these are not our tasks. They are theirs. He says every person has their own tasks in life, to study, to work, to love, to grow. When you start interfering with someone else's task, you create conflict and stress. For example, if you keep trying to make everyone like you, you're taking over their task, because liking or disliking you is their decision, not yours. The philosopher tells the young man, your only task is to live your life honestly and kindly. What others think of that is not your task. This idea sounds simple, but it's deeply freeing. It means you can stop wasting energy on changing others, convincing others, or seeking approval. When you focus only on your own tasks, your actions, your growth, your peace, you gain real power. You stop reacting to others' emotions and start creating your own calm. And that's when life becomes lighter, because you finally understand you're responsible for your own happiness and no one else's.
Chapter 6. The Need to be Liked and Why It Hurts Us. One of the biggest lessons in the courage to be disliked is this: the desire to be liked by everyone is the root of endless pain. The philosopher explains that most people don't live their own lives. They live for the opinions of others. They wear masks, speak carefully, and act differently, all to avoid being judged. But in doing that, they lose their real self. He says, quote, "The need to be liked is a form of fear," end quote. When you constantly seek approval, you become a prisoner of people's opinions. Every compliment becomes your happiness, and every criticism becomes your pain. And that's no way to live freely. The philosopher teaches that it's perfectly okay if not everyone likes you. In fact, it's natural. When you live honestly, some people will disagree, some will misunderstand, and some will even dislike you. But that doesn't make you wrong. Real courage, he says, is living your truth, even when others don't agree. You can still be kind, respectful, and understanding, but you don't need everyone's approval to feel worthy.
When you stop chasing validation, something amazing happens. You find peace inside yourself. You start doing things because they feel right, not because they'll make others clap. You speak honestly. You make your own choices, and you sleep peacefully. That's what the book calls true freedom, the courage to live your life without the chains of other people's opinions.
Chapter 7. The Misunderstood Idea of Freedom. Many people think freedom means doing whatever they want, living without rules or limits, but in The Courage to be Disliked, the philosopher explains that this is not real freedom. Real freedom is not about doing everything. It's about taking full responsibility for your choices and your happiness. He says most of us live trapped by excuses. We blame our parents, society, our past, or bad luck for where we are. We say things like, I can't be happy because of my childhood, or I can't succeed because others don't support me. But this thinking keeps us stuck. The philosopher reminds us, as long as we keep blaming others, we give away our power. True freedom begins the moment we say, my happiness is my responsibility. You can't control how others act, but you can control how you respond. You can't change the past, but you can decide how much power it will have over you today. This idea may sound simple, but it's deeply powerful. Because when you stop blaming and start owning your life, you suddenly realize you are free. No one else can decide your mood, your peace, or your purpose. Freedom is not about breaking rules. It's about breaking mental chains. When you understand this, life becomes lighter. You stop waiting for people to make you happy and start creating your own happiness, one choice at a time. Chapter 8. Living for Contribution, Not Competition. According to Alfred Adler, the true purpose of life is not to compete, it is to contribute. Most people spend their lives comparing. Who earns more, who looks better, who has more followers. This endless race never brings peace. It only creates jealousy, pressure, and self-doubt. The philosopher in the book explains that happiness begins when you stop asking, how can I win, and start asking, how can I help? Life is not a competition. It's a community. When you focus on giving instead of proving, everything changes. You stop seeing people as rivals and start seeing them as fellow travelers in life's journey. Contribution doesn't mean doing something huge or dramatic. It can be as simple as smiling at someone, helping a colleague, listening to a friend, or spreading positivity in your family. Each small act of kindness adds meaning to your life. When you live with this mindset, your heart feels lighter. There's no jealousy, no comparison, only peace. You realize that your value doesn't depend on being better than others. It depends on being useful to others. That's the secret Adler teaches. Joy doesn't come from winning over people. It comes from connecting with them. And when you live for contribution, not competition, you finally find what everyone is searching for, a calm, happy, and fulfilled life. Chapter 9. The Power of the Present Moment. You don't need to fix your past or worry about what's coming next, because life is happening only now. The philosopher in The Courage to be Disliked reminds us that the past exists only in memory, and the future exists only in imagination. The only real time you can live, choose, or change anything is this very moment. Many people waste their lives thinking, if only my past was different, or what if I fail in the future? But Adler teaches both thoughts steal your peace. You can't rewrite what has already happened, and you can't live tomorrow before it comes. The only thing that matters is the action you take today. Every small choice in the present builds your future self. When you decide to be kind instead of angry, brave instead of fearful, or calm instead of reactive, you're already shaping a new life.
You don't have to wait for a perfect time or a perfect plan. The power to transform your life is already in your hands, right now. So live this moment fully. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't. Forget the regrets, stop predicting failures, and just act with honesty and courage in the present. Because when you give your best to now, your future automatically starts falling into place.
Chapter 10. The Courage to Be Happy. Happiness is not something you find, it's something you choose. But to choose happiness, you must have the courage to be disliked. That's the core message of this book. Most people try to make everyone around them happy, parents, friends, society, and in the process, they lose themselves. But true happiness comes when you stop trying to please everyone and start living a life that feels right to you. Adler's philosophy reminds us that no one else can decide what your life should look like. People may judge you, misunderstand you, or even walk away, and that's okay. You don't need everyone's approval to be at peace. You just need to stand by your own truth. Being happy takes courage because it means saying no to pressure, expectations, and fear. It means accepting that not everyone will agree with your choices, but you still follow your heart anyway. So stop chasing the impossible goal of being liked by everyone. Instead, build a life that makes you proud when you look in the mirror. Because the moment you stop fearing judgment, you start feeling light, free, and truly alive. That's the real courage. The courage to be happy.
The courage to be disliked teaches one simple but powerful truth. Peace doesn't come from others' approval. It comes from self-acceptance. You can't control what people say, think, or expect from you, but you can always control how you choose to live. So stop trying to fit into every box that society builds for you. Stop living for likes, praise, or applause. None of those things can give you lasting happiness. Real peace begins when you decide to live your own story with courage, honesty, and purpose. Don't be afraid if people disagree or judge you. The goal of life is not to be liked by everyone, it's to be true to yourself. Because at the end of the day, the happiest people aren't the ones with the most followers or approval. They're the ones who have the courage to be real. So go ahead, live boldly, live freely, and write your own story.